not the first day of bowl practice, but kind of the first real kind of look at LSU. And for us to get a little bit more involved into the LSU stuff, the first 4 or 5 ones were a lot of young guys and really just kind of playing and not trying to get into LSU too early, just because we didn't want guys to get bored. Obviously, there's a lot to not get bored about, but the idea of this week in particular, we'll go pretty hard and then get them out of here for a few days for Christmas and then head down to the bowl game. So we still got a good amount of time to prepare, but this was our first real kind of look at and game planning for LSU.
Luke, in what ways, if any, does Jaden Daniels' decision not to play in the games change? Obviously,
we were waiting to see. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Nussmeier is a really, really good player, too. I mean, know plenty about him. I actually played with his dad for a little bit, a short amount of time. But, I mean, there are things, obviously, that are definitely different with the Heisman Trophy winner. I don't know that the offense changes a whole lot. Obviously, the dynamic of a legitimate, taking the distance quarterback run, obviously is a little bit different. But that's why I think in some of these situations, bowl games, you're kind of got to focus on yourself and the things that you got to do, because there could be a lot of different things that you're seeing out there based on personnels and even for us, on personnels and things like that. So, we've been planning for a little while, not really knowing, and not that it's going to adjust a whole lot.
The leagues are allowed to talk about the transfers that have committed and signed. I think that's what they said.
I don't know that for a fact. The transfers don't really sign. I have no idea who that is, so I can acknowledge that there's somebody, but I don't know which ones I can and can't talk about, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I don't really, honestly, I don't. You can give me a thumbs up, but I don't really. Truthfully, I don't know any of the rules. I mean, not that there are rules, right? I mean, right now I'm not really sure. I've gotten myself in trouble before on picking up a phone call or something and not recognizing what the rules are. So to be honest with you, not trying to avoid it, I'm just cautiously not sure if there are rules in college football, and if there are rules in college football, what they are.
Just in general, regarding the portal, we had just noticed that over the years,
I mean, portal's only been around for a couple of years.
Guys at the skill positions seem to be more likely to transfer to enter the portal than interior linemen on either side of the ball. Why do you think that's been the case, and is that something else staff looks at just in terms of what positions are you need to?
No, for us, portal-wise, if we're going to do something there, it's really to try to fill some spots. Things happen, whether guys leave or whether all of a sudden you run into a situation where you've got young guys and you've got old guys and you got to find a gap in between. That's kind of for us the way we want to try to use it. Why there are more skilled guys than there are bigger guys, I don't know. I think the nature of the beast, right? I mean, if you pretty easy to evaluate if you don't get a lot of balls, if you don't catch a lot of balls. Obviously, sometimes it probably looks like the grass is greener on the other side, but I just think it's the nature of how guys are recruited, what they expect on a weekly basis, and then what they think might be out there, I guess.
Hypothetically,
That's maybe a nice touch on the skilled guys kind of side of things, with the natural nature of the lineman type guys. I think are by nature going to grind things out, and hopefully that doesn't change.
Hypothetically, if you were to add a quarterback, what exactly is the challenge there with what you already have in the room? One of those guys that transferred in here wanted to play. Perhaps bringing in another quarterback. What is the challenge there?
I don't know that there's a challenge. I mean, you got to create competition. I think that in everything that you do, you got to create competition. And so for us to bring in another quarterback in particular in that room, it's the same thing that we're talking about at the outside linebacker position. You've got really young guys. You've got an old guy like in Tanner who's going to walk out the door, and you don't have a whole lot of in-betweens, right? I mean, so to bring in another guy, do you want to continue to keep doing this and over again? No, that's not the objective of what we're doing. But when you've got really young guys, it's really kind of difficult to not say we're going to bring somebody in to compete. And we kind of had that philosophy. We kind of thought that might be another year of having to do that, regardless of what we think of those other guys. I just think that you've got young guys and redshirt sophomores. The reality is you got to have some more guys with some experience to ultimately create some competition.
So do you view that quarterback spot as a competition going into the offseason?
Everything's a competition. I mean, don't get me wrong. Any quarterback that I talk to, I said, look, nothing's going to be handed to you. And to be honest, those guys are mature guys. I mean, they understand that. And we said the same thing to Tanner Mordecai. There might be an expectation, you might have more experience than anybody else, but you're going to walk into a place where ultimately the culture of what we want to do is to make guys compete. And all of them, any of them that I had talked to in particular, understand that and want that. They say they want that, obviously.
Now that you've had a chance to go through some bowl prep practices with an understanding of who will be on the roster for the bowl game,
We think.
yeah, we think. Who would you expect to fill certain roles? I guess in particular, Rodas on the defensive line, and a couple of wide receivers with Tremaine Skyline in here, and then Jordan Turner out. Who do you expect to?
The same guys that have played all year. I mean, I think the bigger issue that guys would probably be curious about is what's going to happen with Tanner Borlini. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, the guys have played, right? I mean, Jake Chaney's a starter. So I don't know that there's any, kind of like, well, I wonder what's going to happen in that spot. Does it give Tatum Grass a greater opportunity and to play a little bit more that he hasn't got quite as many reps this year? I think the bigger issue, not issue, but is, hey, how are you going to do and what are you going to fill in the offensive line wise? And right now, I'd say it's Jake Renfro maybe as the center, and Joe Huber's played some at center, which gives some other guys at the guard, Joe Brunner, and some guys at the guard positions greater opportunities too. And I think that I would tell you that as this all evolves, there's a bounce in a lot of other guys' steps, and I think that's trying to find the positives behind all this. To see Kurt Neal out there with the ones, fired up, earning this opportunity maybe in a lot of different situations is exciting. To see Jake Renfro and Joe Huber play a little bit different spot, and to see Joe Brunner get in there and play with the ones. I mean, there's a bounce in some of these guys' step to have these opportunities that maybe, for good fortunes, we didn't get hurt up front. Offensive line, defensive line, not much. So some of those guys didn't get as much opportunities.
Not to go into the guys specifically, but you added some pass rushers to the transfer portal. What are some of the things that you maybe were looking at for that position, for that edge spot to maybe change that dynamic?
Well, it starts with competition, but I think that, sticking with a lot of the things that we've done here in the past, that position in particular has been pretty dynamic, right? I mean, we don't have to talk about them. I mean, it's pretty, you guys have been here for a while. You've seen what the edge guys have done in the past, and probably didn't have quite as much of that this year. And to be honest with you, CJ gave us every single thing he got, and we didn't have an opportunity to have him roll a little bit. I mean, he played 70-some snaps a game, when in reality, I wish he could have played 50 snaps a game. He would have been, he wouldn't have been a shell of himself at the end of the season. But he didn't bat an eye at it. He, obviously battled his rear off the entire season. But we've got to create some more competition. We've got to create some guys that put some dynamic stuff on the edge, so that our guys don't have to. I mean, the nature of the beast up front is you got to be able to roll guys. If you don't have 4 guys that can rush off the edge, by the end of the year, it's going to be really tough.
This is a time of year when some of those young guys get opportunities that they might not during the regular season. Who among those young guys, if anybody, has kind of stood out?
I mean, I think we've seen some of these guys, with the 4 games that you're allowed to use guys. I think you've seen some of it. I think that, the Braden Moores of the world is somebody you haven't seen a whole lot of, but, just in the situation that there's a lot more opportunities. Austin Brown is a guy we all know and has done a lot, but I think you're going to see a lot more of him. And he's played a lot of ball, but he's never had the opportunity probably to play a significant role, defensively. Obviously he's rolled in there at the safety spot as deep as we've had it, but him playing outside as a nickel a little bit more. And there's a guy, Tucker Ashcroft's played a lot of ball, but he's going to continue to have to do that. And Tretch on offense is a wide receiver that's going to fill in there and see a lot more action. To be honest with you, but there's a handful of those guys. I mean, Curtis Neal is a guy that has played a lot of ball, but I don't know that he's played a significant amount. Like, to see him go in there and see if he can play 40 or 50 snaps, I think it's going to be a great experience for us.
These bowl practices, even in the past, were often about getting ready for next year to a certain extent, but how are bowl practices different now versus maybe 5 years ago, just in terms of working on yourself versus working on
I think bowl practices, to me, right now are still the same. It's about development. It's the opportunity for a lot of young guys that maybe have been scout team all year to get out there and legitimately get an opportunity to play and do the things that they can do and not be, put in a little bit of a box. And this is what we need you to do on an everyday basis, as a scout team guy. But I think it's going to change. I mean, where we are right now, I'm not sure that we would say next year that there's going to be a lot of, bowl-ish, times where you're saying, hey, let's take some 10, 12 practices and get better. I mean, unfortunately, unless we can get a grasp on all that's going on, unfortunately, a lot of guys are revamping teams at this point in time, and I don't know if they're as focused on, trying to develop the guys they got in their program. So we have the good fortune of being obviously playing in a big bowl game and having these chances to do this while still trying to navigate the rest of this of some of the things we're going to build. But hopefully there might be a few guys that actually can get here and run around with us a little bit to give us a better glimpse before we even get to spring ball.
How much of a concern is that you have to spend part of this time not only building your regular recruiting class, but having to dig into the transfer portal, or do you feel like it's just the nature, part of the
Yeah, no, it is really difficult, and it's not just everybody talks about the transfer. It's your own guys. It's everybody that the conversations you need to have to make sure first and foremost you take care of the guys in your program. So it's a really, really busy time, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox and say that we've got some issues in college football, but we've got some issues in college football, and I believe in the higher ups, and they'll figure this thing out. I just hope they figure it out a little faster than they might expect. I mean, I don't know that we can continue another cycle or two of this not knowing. I don't think it's good for the game. I don't think it's good for our young guys, but it makes it difficult. It's trying to maintain and develop your own team as far as adding pieces, but also trying to prepare for a bowl game. That's where I think when we talk about bowl practice and bowl prep, things are going to get really different because of just where we're evolving with this, with college football in general. So we all know we got to develop guys, but there's a balance in there between how much time you have to develop them and how much time you got to try to rein them in to make sure this is the right place for them.
You guys have an opening at your wide receiver spot in terms of coach. Are you expecting some other possible changes with your staff as well here in the next few weeks?
No, not that I know of. I mean, you tell me. I mean, it's always, I think the world of what it is. I always worry about when all of a sudden things start happening in the NFL, because we got a lot of guys that have a lot of experience, and whether it goes from the weight room guys to there's guys on GAs and quality control guys that we want to find opportunities for in these next 2 months. But obviously we've got a wide receiver spot that could be filled here soon. But we haven't rushed into some things like that. I think that we've got the guys within the system that give us a chance to come out here and be able to prepare and do what we need to do.
Luke, I don't know if you remember, but back in September, you expressed some frustration about Michael Matt's situation. You said at some point down the road you'll talk about it. Are you there?
I don't know that it's. We've got bigger issues in college football than for me to, still complain about Air Force holding the kid back.
As far as Matt goes, what have you seen in practice? You talk about development. What have you seen in practice, and what do you think he can give you next year when he can play?
I don't know. To be honest, that's what he kind of pulled up a hammy a couple days ago, so we didn't get as many opportunities with him. That's where we're not sure. I mean, we're seeing him run around. We're seeing him make some plays. I don't know if we played a little bit earlier with some of this rule that just went into place for 14 days. So 14 days he might be eligible, but if that something happens and he can play in the bowl game, there'll definitely be an opportunity for him. But probably would be in a special teams role. We got to figure out where he's going to fit best. He's been a corner. We played him a little bit at nickel. He's got some ability to play at safety. So I think more than anything that you move him around a little bit too much, it's hard for him to kind of settle in and show us what he can really do.
You've got experience with this where you have to change coaches in bowl prep. Like, who's working with the wide receivers right now?
Well, I mean, it's a combination.
Yeah.
Obviously they're spending a lot of time with Coach Longo and they're meeting together. But I think that just as a whole, we're trying to make sure we're all touching those guys. So sometimes it actually gives you an opportunity to kind of rein things in and be a little clearer and cleaner, especially in year one. But Rob Everett has been a guy that's kind of filling that role a little bit and making sure that those guys are kind of in line and kind of going hand to hand with the quarterbacks. It actually gives us a little bit greater opportunity for those guys to meet together a lot more.
With all the portal stuff that's changed and came into existence the last couple of years, if you got to wave a magic wand and implement a couple things, what would make your job easier in terms of, because coaches across...
We're not trying to make the great thing about football is we're not trying to make it easier. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to make it easier for our kids. It's a tough sport for tough people, and so I would hate to say that there's anything that we want to do to make it easier. I mean, this game is a really, really tough game. I think there's some things that we've got to do to make it sounder, to give us a greater opportunity to develop our own kids, give us a greater opportunity for our kids to kind of be locked in and focused. But right now it's really difficult. I think that the combination of, having ability to leave if things aren't well or right, along with the world of, the NIL, a combination of those things make it really difficult. And I don't mean on a coach, we're going to play by the rules that we have to play by, but I think it makes it difficult for us to continue to develop guys, to keep guys focused, because it's a tough sport. School is tough. 18 to 22-year-olds, there's a lot of things that are going on with them, and so much freedom, so many opportunities for people to get into your ears, because there's no rules, so to speak, on who can talk to who. I know we say there is, but I think it makes it really difficult, not just on us. We signed up for this. I think it makes it really difficult on 18 to 22-year-olds to kind of finish school, to finish finals, when you could have 6, 10, 8, 12 people reaching out to you, with the different opportunities, trying to, lure you into, hey, come check this out, come try this, get into the portal. More than anything, I just think it makes it difficult on those guys.
Coach Jason Maitre, he's a guy who announced that he's for the I wanted to ask, who are some guys that you've seen at the position during the bowl prep?
So Owen Arnett is obviously a guy that played that position with Jace all year, and Austin Brown's been a guy that's kind of filled in, and Austin's played a lot of ball, been more at the safety spot, but has been a guy that's filled in out at the nickel spot for us. So there'll be a little bit of a combination of things, but I think it gives us a great opportunity for us to move forward.
So I know it's a couple of days away, but with just recruiting and that.
We forgot about that, right?
Yeah,
the high school actual kids that we want to build your program on.
Well, I think you talked about this a little bit during Big Ten Media Days, but just, you're now into your first year as Wisconsin coach. Just what have you seen? You talk about recruiting rivalries, and what have you just experienced within the Big Ten and programs you've gone against, and even those beyond the league too?
Yeah, I know we want to do our best job recruiting high school kids. We want to do our best job with guys we're going to have for 4 and 5 years. And I think we've done that. I think we're going to have a really good day on Wednesday. Obviously, there's been a lot of things that we've known about for quite a while, but until Wednesday comes, you still kind of hold your breath a little bit. But I think that at this point in time, when you used to try to hold on to your guys, just the nature of the beast. So many people are focused on so many other things, and I don't mean preparing for bowl games. From the transfer portal, it's like, dang, maybe this isn't a bad thing. They aren't worried about or recruiting as much of the high school kids. So for us, it's a big part of what we're doing and what we want to continue to do. I don't know. We've heard guys say that heck with recruiting high school kids anymore. I'm just going to recruit the portal. Is that real? I don't know. But I think for us, it gives us an opportunity, if that does happen for more people, to give us a better way to continue to build our program.
What are some things that you've learned about LSU that you might not have known a couple weeks ago when we last talked to you as a team?
I don't know if I didn't know. Obviously I know that they're loaded with talent and speed. I think that that first and foremost. But I think the physicality and the size is something that I would have assumed, but I didn't probably know it as well until I started watching. You hear about the Jaden Daniels, and you hear about all the skill and the Napier and the wide receivers, and then all of a sudden you really start to watch and you see what kind of makes the engine go. And those guys up front, both offensively and defensively, the interior guys on the defensive line are pro players. They're going to be NFL for sure. They got an outside linebacker that's as good as anybody in the country. You don't hear about them, you don't talk about them as much until you start to watch and see. They're definitely loaded across the board. It's not just the skill that everybody talks about. It's the physicality they can play with up front.
There's obviously been a lot of movement at wide receiver, transfer portal additions, departures. With that position in particular, what kind of skill sets are you looking to add to the team?
I think we all. Guys are going to catch the ball. Guys who can be dynamic, but I think that there's more to it than just that. I think there's a confidence level that you've got to be able to create when playing those positions. Everybody thinks like we know somebody in a transfer. The reality is the transfer portal, to me, it's a bigger crapshoot than a high school kid. Now, there are some that aren't. There's some guys out there that have 50, 60, 70 catches that aren't as much of a crapshoot, but they're still leaving for a reason. So I think more than anything, we want to find the ones we believe fit us, to find the ones that we probably know better than than most people. Maybe we recruited them out of high school. Maybe we spent some time with them in a different way, or one of our coaches knows them, or recruited them or coached them at some point in time. But I think for us in general, we want to find guys that want to compete. Just like we said, we didn't tell any guy walking in here that you're the starter, right? Hey, you're going to be starting court. No, do you want to come in here? Do you want to compete? And if you do, then you're going to add to the to the culture of what it is that we're trying to continue to build. So nothing can be handed to any guys. We got a lot of guys in there that would resent somebody walking in and think they're just going to be handed something, and then that's what we want. We want our guys within there to to have a little bit of an edge, and think, okay, you don't need to go get somebody else, but let's go out and prove it.
Why do you think the portal is more of a crapshoot than high school?
Again, they're leaving for a reason, maybe. I don't know. I mean, things are changing now. There's a lot more guys in it, but there's not a quick fix. It's not just a perfect something out there. So you don't really know them, right? I mean, why are they really leaving? I don't know. I mean, the same thing with maybe our guys that leave. Does somebody know really why they're leaving? Are there good reasons to leave? Yeah, I'm sure there are. But they're still walking away. So I think you just got to be careful. There's a lot of really good kids out there that can fit into some good situations, but it's an educated guess.
Hypothetically, is that why you may target guys that are proven at maybe a lower level?
I do like that.
Okay.
I do like that. I like guys that maybe in some ways are, hey, I want to take this challenge to go to a different level, to put myself in a different position, get out of my comfort zone. Yes, I love that. We've been very fortunate, even when we were at Cincinnati, to have a lot of success with guys, and in some ways looked at it as they were taking, another step. We have guys come from Rhode Island, we have guys come from the MAC that were incredibly successful for us, and I think it's just the way that they came in, the attitude that they had, and the way they fit.
So with one more, maybe. So with just maybe on the opposite side of bringing guys in, guys going out, just what types of conversations do you have with those players that decide that they want to enter the transfer portal?
Well, hopefully you have a conversation with them. That's sometimes the difficult thing, is sometimes you don't get an opportunity to have a conversation with some guys, and it makes it difficult because some decisions are already made. And when decisions are already made and people don't want to talk about it, it makes it very hard. But I know in year one, the relationships that you're trying to build, it probably makes it a little bit difficult. There's a lot of things that changed and a lot of things that maybe didn't go as any of us had expected or planned, and so sometimes that makes it feel like it's a better route. But either way, I respect them. I tell them, hey, we'll support you in any way possible. I don't always agree with it. It's disappointing at times, but sometimes it's not a bad thing for all involved. And so you can't judge, from the outside looking in, or even from me, to judge what is best for a kid within our program, or even a kid from outside our program, makes it very difficult.
Okay, right?
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.
Do this again on Wednesday.